Now, another reason that science can't burn a star successfully is because they're not using the four fundamental forces. All they think is, well, if we can compress a bunch of hydrogen into a magnetic field and try to ignite it, then it'll burn like a star. Wrong. Where's your plasma? Where's your energy? In space, the gravity is the energy. Okay, like I said on the last video, I might have to reverse these two around, put the gravity down here for the energy, because that's the nuclear energy, okay? And the electromagnetism up here, where the diamagnetism is to compress the hydrogen. But nonetheless, the fundamental forces are right here, okay? And you need these four. And scientists put in so much fuel, they got all the fuel in the world, all of the fuel that they can possibly feed it. But they can't get it to burn more than 1/10 of a second or a microsecond. Because literally, they have no energy to put into the star. Okay? What happens at a plasma torch? Well, plasma torch. Okay? It's hot, it's bright, and you got plasma. Okay? That sounds like the sun. So, if you have an open nuclear arc, that you are literally compressing hydrogen and alpha particles in that field and applying electrons to them, creating a hot, bright arc, then you're literally going to fuse those two atoms together. The nucleus is literally going to end up being a lithium atom because of there's those 3 protons. And during the nuclear reaction, the neutrons are going to spontaneously be made. That's what happens. Neutrons are formed, okay? And the electrons are going to apply how they need to, okay? So, through this thermonuclear equilibrium, you can literally sustain a star. You can literally fuse 2 particles together at room temperature. Now, people misunderstand the word cold fusion, okay? It's hot. Don't let the words fool you. Cold fusion is very hot. It's thermodynamics, it's thermonuclear, it's bright, it's hot, but it can be achieved at room temperature. That's why it's called cold fusion. Because literally, if I had this open arc, and these gases and these particles, I can fuse them at room temperature with a radioisotope thermonuclear arc. It all coincides with everything else. And Nikola Tesla, I believe, had this down. I believe he knew it, or he was working on it or something. And I think he left something out because he knew that the American government would come in and steal everything. And Leonardo da Vinci did the exact same thing. He knew that things were going to be stolen over time, so he left things out or reversed things. That way, if somebody tried to steal it, they wouldn't be able to get it right. He was the only one that knew what to do. And I believe that radium is the key to wireless energy. You have to have that nuclear energy to make it work effectively. And look, when I say this looks like a nuclear reactor because you got the control rods and everything, and it coincides with the Ark of the Covenant, okay? It also coincides with a Hall-Héroult cell, the antechamber. This is a Hall-Héroult cell, and it looks like the antechamber, which is ironic. This is the Seebeck effect right here. This uses the Seebeck effect. It's what basically is a thermoelectric generator. This is what produces it. You got your positive and your negative material. That's exactly what we use. The P-type and N-type. Okay? Lithium has a positive electronegativity. Fluorine has the most electronegative power on the periodic table. It wants electrons. Okay? So, with that being said, 369 coincides with the electronegativity and thermonuclear or thermoelectric generator. Carbon would be the conductor, okay? It's the perfect conductor. Perfect. Carbon literally is, we use it in lights, okay? Filaments and everything that we use the material for even coincides with this. There's nothing here that we haven't found out in science. I've just literally added it all together. Everything's out there. All the information is out there. But it just takes a lot of time and energy to put it all together. Ironically, radium is 88. This is basically a capacitor. It's a thermonuclear capacitor or a thermoelectric capacitor. flux capacitor, 88 miles per hour. I just think that's a little too ironic. I believe Hollywood actually knows a lot of the history on this planet and uses a lot of it just to make movies to create disbelief and make money at the same time. Okay, this is an 8-sided pyramid. Okay, Khufu's pyramid is literally an 8-sided pyramid. Okay, it kind of coincides with a hexagon, Metatron's cube, the Star of David, the flower of life or the tree of life, the Saturn storm at the North Pole, the big hexagon. Hexagons are very important. Okay, this is basically two pyramids together, one tilted one way, one tilted the other, and that's how you get a hexagon or the 8-sided pyramid. Ironically, I've said this before. This looks like a motherboard. Okay, this is the main CPU. It even has a pyramid socket. It's a socket 1191, if I'm not mistaken. We use pyramid sockets for motherboards. You know, socket 478, socket 462, socket 1151. I mean, literally, core computing is pure energy. What else is pure energy? A star. So a star is being sustained in this main CPU. The only thing is, it's not processing data, it's processing energy. Okay? This looks like the antechamber also. Ironically, this is a lightning arrestor. So I believe the antechamber was a positive chamber. It had a positive charge to it somehow, whether it ionized the hydrogen gases that come in there, or it was a lightning arrestor, or it was like a Hall-Héroult cell. Regardless, it had a positive charge in that antechamber. Alright, this is another depiction that you see in hieroglyphs everywhere. These look like torches. This might be the hot side. This down here is the cold side. But regardless, it looks like it has its control rods in it, you know. It's P-type and N-type material. So that also coincides with a thermoelectric generator. Alright, now this is another cold fusion generator I kind of thought of. This would be what would the staffs or scepters that these ancient Egyptian gods supposedly had, you know. I guarantee every bit of it was electronic and nuclear, but they were holding, you know, these staffs getting this wireless energy. Anyway, this is basically what I believe. Like, you could literally make a staff, a cold fusion generator, a star in here. Okay. Now, if you have your hot and your ground, you have your hydrogen coming through here. You have your radionuclear arc right here. Okay. You feed the hydrogen in here, ionize it through the cathode and anode, and you essentially fuse the particles like I was talking about here, except for you do it in a staff. And ironically, that staff coincides with these hieroglyphs here. Okay, now this comes out of the ground, which I think is the ground. This is, I believe, is the hot, because it's the air, the antenna, a bird that would be flying through the air. Okay, then you have snakes that represent coils, I think, or capacitors, however you want to look at this. These look like capacitor plates, but in the hieroglyphs, they're coils. Let's see, where was that? Anyway, it's in one of them. If you look at the hieroglyphs, you find this, you'll see two snakes beside each other, which I believe are coils. I mean, that's obviously how you're going to depict a coil with a snake. If you're trying to talk to somebody about this stuff and you don't speak English, or you don't know what language they're going to speak in the future. I believe that you have your resistance. You basically have every symbol. They resemble something. And hieroglyphs look a lot like our electrical depictions. Like this could be a transistor. Now this is just guessing. I'm just guessing on this. But I guarantee I'm on the right track, because literally everything that hieroglyphs depict coincide with something that we depict as electrical. Okay? Like this. I believe this is the open arc, or the Ankh, or the spark, you know, and you have your diode or whatever's shooting it straight up. Alright? And in the King's Chamber, you have your diode, which directs energy up. And I believe this is your P-type and N-type material also, when you use this heat from this star. When it's self-sustaining itself, you got your cold side, your hot side. It's self-sustaining itself. The ionized hydrogen's coming through this anode here. It's ionizing it. You're essentially taking the heat and energy and you're directing it into the casing of the system. You're filtering out the radioactivity and just getting the pure electricity or pure energy you need from it. Because the pyramids themselves are made of the right material for transferring this energy and localizing it in the Queen's Chamber. Whatever was in the Queen's chamber directed it to the capstone, which distributed it to the atmosphere. And that wireless energy went through these scepters and staffs that these ancient gods had, and they were considered gods because they had that power. Now, whether they could shoot a lightning bolt and electrocute someone to death, or whether they could use that energy, that polarity, to move something without even touching it, would make them seem like gods. Okay? If you had a staff that was producing a high polarity, you could literally part water, just like Moses' staff. So if it had a high magnetic field around it, you would literally be able to walk through the water and part it around you, because water is diamagnetic too. It's got a lot of hydrogen in it. So you can literally push hydrogen with a magnetic field. Okay? This is Metatron's cube, or two pyramids, or the tree of life, or whatever. There's actually several things in history that coincides with this hexagon. Okay? And it all coincides with the hexagon, power, and the ancients. So they obviously knew about this power. They obviously knew what power was.